Hi, and thanks for joining. If you're new here, my name is Wendy and this is Nina's Jewels. My husband and I buy things at places like thrift stores, garage sales, anywhere we can find things to sell online and flip for a profit. If that's content you're interested in, you're in the right place. Today's video is going to be what sold for November 26th through December 2nd. But before we get started, I'm actually going to open some viewer mail that we got. So let's do that. This mail is from Richard Skirka. So let's see what we got. It says, the best of wishes to you and yours for a holiday season. Richard Skirka. That's so nice. Thank you. And then there's a little notepad inside of it. And I will actually definitely use that. I could use a new notepad up here. So thank you so much, Richard. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the support of all of our viewers. So we're just honored that anybody even watches these videos. It means so much to us. We just came on here originally to share our experience and cannot believe that we have almost 4,000 subscribers. It means so much to us. And when you guys comment and share your experiences with me, I am humbled and honored that we are able to make an online connection through this platform, and thank you so much. Alright, so let's get started with what sold. The first thing that we sold was something that we've had in our store for an extremely long period of time. I think I got like a higher offer for it a long time ago and was like, no, I'm not going to take it. Now I regret it. This is a Nike blue long sleeve pullover running shirt. It had the little mitten sleeves so that you could cover up your fingers. I got this at a thrift store for $9.10, and I don't know, I just thought it was worth more, and I should have accepted that higher offer a long time ago, but you know, sometimes you just make mistakes. But ultimately this sold for $30 even on best offer, and I'm glad to have that. Next up was a vintage 1-inch square gold tone and porcelain enamel hand-painted snuff or pill box, and it was marked Italy. It was a very pretty little pill box. We got this at an estate sale for just $2, and it sold for $33.68 on offer to buyer. Next up was a 2010 Marvel Hasbro Playskool Heroes Green Goblin Replacement Glider. This is the kind of thing that always surprises me that it sells, and we got this out of a thrift store toy bag. We try to list everything that we get out of a thrift store toy bag because they take up such small amounts of space and the most random items sell. This sold only for $8.98, but I mean, come on. We paid 22 cents for it, and somebody came on looking for it, and we had it. Next up was another lot of 21 blank audio cassettes. We've been selling a lot of those lately. We got the majority of these gifted to us to sell by a family member, but some of them were purchased at thrift stores. We were out of pocket on these a total of 81 cents, and these sold for $29.68 on offer to buyer. Next up was a Microsoft Xbox game. This was Cabela's Big Game Hunter. We got this at a garage sale for $1, and it sold for $12.34. Next up was a vintage Toshiba cassette player. This was one that I picked up recently at a garage sale. It had like a little leather case with it, and it seemed like a really expensive one, but just like a lot of old Walkman type items, the wheels wouldn't turn on it, so we listed it for parts or repair. If you can find an old Walkman or an old Walkman style cassette player that does actually work, they can be worth a lot. But this one didn't work, and we still made money on it. We paid $5 for it, and it sold for $32.28. Next up was another package of that Elmer's goo. Those things are selling really well this holiday season. This was the pre-made slime in the strawberry donut scent. We found this at a garage sale for $2, and it sold for $14.99. Next up was a pattern. This was a Simplicity teen home decorating pattern for room accessories. We found this in the Goodwill bins for 92 cents, and it sold for $11.99. Next up was an OtterBox phone case. We found this in the Goodwill bins for $1.68. and it sold for $20.99. I have heard other people say that they have had issues with counterfeit claims from OtterBox, but we've sold multiple OtterBox items and have not had any issues with them. I mean, of course, I always look at them very carefully to make sure that they appear to be genuine, but we've never had any issues with that. But, you know, now I've probably said that and I've jinxed myself, but we've never really had any issues with those. If we do in the future, we just won't sell them, but until we actually hear something or, you know, get a complaint from OtterBox, then we will continue to pick them up and sell them. Next up was a set of 2 embroidered chocolate brown curtain panels. These were actually my curtain panels. I actually bought them off of someone on Facebook Marketplace a long time ago. Used them in my house for a long time, and I don't remember how much I paid for them. We sold these for $25 even on best offer. Next up was a vintage photo of a church, and it had matting around it. This was from the other business that we own, which is a custom picture frame shop. This sold for $15.18 on offer to buyer. Next up was a 5-piece lot of mix and match infant boys clothing. We got this out of a storage unit. We paid just 24 cents for these clothes, and they sold for $19.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was a women's extra large racerback yoga bra. This came out of that Via Trading box where we partnered with Via Trading. They sent us a box and we did an unboxing on our channel. I'll link that video down below. But this bra sold for $9.80. Next up was a vintage 2000 Fiji brand white ceramic Snow Joe snowman cookie jar. This was actually mine. It was gifted to me a long time ago. I had a huge collection of snowman stuff and I just no longer display them, so I decided to sell it. This sold for $59.99. Next up was a vintage 1980 Wham-O 160 gram purple world class freestyle frisbee. We found this at a thrift store for 35 cents and it sold for $17.84. Next up was a Bobby Sanabria Getting Started on Congas Drums VHS. This was like a kind of a weird niche item that we decided to pick up because it was so specialized and niche. We found this at the thrift store for 13 cents and it sold for $14.24. Next up was a Mario Kart Wii game. We found this inside of a different case at a garage sale, and that case actually had 2 different Mario games in it, and this was one of them. This was the disc only. We paid 50 cents for it and it sold really fast for $37.99. Mario Kart is a super popular game, so if you ever see it anywhere, definitely pick it up. Next up was 2 of the Maker's Mark whiskey bandanas. These both sold to the same buyer. We paid $1.18 for each of those and they sold for $18.98, and that was our full asking price. Next up was a Pyramid Technologies time clock. We did not have the key for it, but we did test it and it worked. It did say low ink, but we didn't have the key to be able to get into it. I'm sure you could, you know, find it somewhere, like eBay. We found this in the Goodwill bins and I was like, I don't know if this would sell or not, but I'm gonna give it a shot. We picked that up for $1.03 and it sold for $42.99. Next up was a Gideon Pocket Bible. We got this at the thrift store for 35 cents and it sold for $14.99. That was our full asking price. Next up was 10 vintage Anchor Hawking Cobalt Blue Fountainware 6-ounce soda fountain sundae glasses. These were actually mine. I loved them. I love cobalt blue kitchen stuff, but this is just an item that sat in my kitchen and I always thought like, oh, I love those, I'm not going to get rid of them, but I just never ever used them. So I was really doing like a kitchen reorganization recently and decided like I'm going to be very diligent about getting rid of anything that I have not used in the last few years, and these did not make the cut, so I decided to sell them, and they sold for a total price. We did charge shipping on these. The buyer was all in for $62. Next up was an 8-inch Willy Wolf gray and white fuzzy plush squishmallow, and that was new with tags.
We found that at the thrift store. I think that somebody had found it and hid it in like a really weird place because we found it in an unusual place in the thrift store. We think maybe they had hid it and were possibly going to come back for it on half price day, but we got to it first. We purchased that for $1.62 and it sold for $28.04. Next up was a genuine Coach women's beige and gold leather signature trifold snap wallet. We got this at an estate sale for $5 and it sold for $26.38. Next up was an IKEA item that we got for free. Someone on the Nextdoor app was giving away just a bag of random kids items for free, and this was in there. This was a plush toy in the shape of a birthday cake. It was brand new. The packaging did have some damage, which is why it says read in the title, but it was brand new in the original packaging. It only sold for $7.64, but we had no cost with that, so we still made some profit. Next up was an Itsy Bitsy brand pair of 10mm sterling silver Christmas tree stud earrings. They were new in the package. We got these doing retail arbitrage. We paid $3.84 for them, and they sold for $30 even. Next up was a 2020 lot of McDonald's Happy Meal toys. It included a Snow White figure and a Cinderella figure. They were out of the package. We found these in the Goodwill bins. We paid 67 cents for them and they sold for $9.34. Next up was two 3-piece sets of Kirkland's pewter Santa Christmas ornament photo frames. They were new in the box. We were gifted these to sell by a family member, so we had no cost, and they sold for $37 total. Next up was two Wrangler's Cavender's black boot-shaped can koozies. We found these at a garage sale for 25 cents and they sold for $19.99. Next up was a bad buy. This was a lot of 11 horse figures. It included a bunch of different brands and I had gotten them at multiple places. But a lot of them came out of thrift store toy bags, so those weren't really bad buys. Those were just, extras that we got. But I had purchased the majority of these using some credits that we had on Mercari from when you guys use our Mercari affiliate link. So thank you so much to anybody who has used our Mercari affiliate link. That really does help us out when you use our link. So we're super appreciative of that, and it helps you out too because you can earn up to $30 by clicking that Mercari affiliate link. And we also get some money as well. So anytime you guys use any of our links, thank you so much. But anyway, this time we had some credit on Mercari and I applied some of it towards this purchase because it had some Breyer's horses in it. But when I actually got them in the mail, I realized the condition of them was just awful. They were in horrible condition. And looking back at the listing, it was partially my fault. Like, I did not look at the pictures close enough, but I do feel like the buyer misrepresented the listing as well. So, it's just kind of a bad buy. I did decide to go ahead and list them. We listed them for cheap, and I was very descriptive about it in our listing. So we did technically lose some money on this sale, but we were able to recuperate some of our cost as well. So even though we're in the negative on this, we technically did not lose as much as we would have if we had just not sold them. Hope that makes sense. So this was a lot of 11 different horse figures, and you can see it says right in the title, some have damage. Our out-of-pocket cost on these was $15.44, and they sold for $23.98. Okay, next up was an item that I had originally purchased for myself. Then when I actually opened the package, I realized they looked different than I thought they did, and I decided this is not actually what I wanted. So instead of just getting rid of them, I decided to sell them. So this was a 10-pack of women's socks. They were new in the package. I had just opened them and never worn them, so we sold them as new open package. I had paid $5 for these at a garage sale, intending to keep them for myself, and we ended up selling them for $11.18. So technically we took a loss on these as well, but we didn't really purchase these for resale. It was just sold to recoup some of our costs. So it's looking bad for us, guys. All right, moving on. Next up was a 2-piece set of more of those Kirkland's pewter Christmas ornament photo frames. These were also gifted to us to sell by a family member, so we had no cost, and these sold for $14 even.
Next up was a vinyl LP called Exercise to Disco. We bought it because it just made us chuckle. We got this at a thrift store for $1.03. Unfortunately, it only sold for $7.25, but we still made a little bit of profit on that. Next up was a pair of women's size 12 black denim stretch high-rise jeans. American Eagle jeans do well for us, so we continue to pick them up. These we got at the Goodwill bins for $2.50, and they sold for $18.74. Next up was a men's Nike Dry Fit training on field short sleeve polo shirt for the Dallas Cowboys. We got this at the church rummage sale for $3.25, and it sold for $23.98 on offer to buyer. Next up was yet another one of those IKEA Algot drawer rails. We got these at the thrift store for $1.35, and it sold for $15 even on best offer. That was a really good pickup. Next up was a vintage Gatorade all over print logo sports towel. Found this at a recent estate sale, comped it, and saw that it was selling. We had paid $2 for that, and it sold really fast for $20 even on best offer. Next up was a McDonald's Happy Meal toy. It was new in the package, and it was a Shaggy from Scooby-Doo bobblehead. We got this at a thrift store for 43 cents. It was probably inside of a toy bag, and that sold for $9.99. Next up was something we got doing retail arbitrage. Seems like we're maybe getting a little bit better at retail arbitrage because most of our retail arbitrage pickups have been major fails in the past. But this was a pair of Bertucci women's black leather Chelsea boots with red lug soles. These were new with tags. We got these at Marshall's. We paid $10 for these, and they sold for $139.99. So that was a really good one, and we have another pair of these, and they have like 11 watchers on them. So I'm really hopeful that they will sell before Christmas this year. Next up was a 2023 Sonic Wacky Pack Lemma fidget popper, new in the package. This was gifted to us to sell by a family member, and it sold for $8.48. And I will say that Sonic toys are by far the best-selling kids' meal toys. We don't really pick up kids' meal toys that often anymore, but if we see Sonic toys, sometimes even if they're out of the packages, we will pick them up because they don't sell for a lot, but they sell. I don't know what it is about Sonic toys. They have a lot of good collabs, for one thing, and I think their kids' meals just don't sell as often, and so the toys are a little bit harder to come by. But we tend to sell a lot of Sonic toys. Next up was a vintage 1989 Hallmark keepsake miniature bluebird Christmas ornament. It was new in the box. We found this in the Goodwill bins for $1.03, and it sold for $12 even on best offer. Next up was a Department 56 Snow Baby. I mentioned that we went to a garage sale where they had a bunch of these, and I comped all of them and only picked up the ones that were worth it. This one I paid $5 for, and it sold for $26.38 on offer to buyer. Next, I'm going to go over all of the collectible cards that sold from my husband's personal collection. We did have a really good week this week. We sold 4 high-value cards, and they all sold to the same buyer, which was great because that helped out our shipping. The cards that we sold to him were all sold via auction, and they were Magic the Gathering Unlimited Natural Selection, Magic the Gathering Unlimited Soul Ring, Magic the Gathering Unlimited Blaze of Glory, and Magic the Gathering Unlimited Bad Moon. Those sold for a total cost of $416.08. And we had no cost because my husband bought those in the 90s. And next we sold 2 low value cards. They were both sold on eBay, and those sold for a total dollar amount of $5.58. So that wraps up everything that sold for the week of November 26th through December 2nd. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please let us and YouTube know by hitting that like button. And if you haven't subscribed already and you made it this far in the video, you might consider subscribing with the notification bell turned on so you can be kept informed of all of our future content. Thank you again for joining, and we will catch you on the flip side.